Okay, I think we are just about ready to go. Recording is going. I know that Stephanie was actually having surgery, so we need to make sure that we keep her in our prayers. I haven't heard how that went, but she was having, oh, am I muted? Can everyone hear me? Okay, perfect. Okay, good. So, Lydia, seems like it is just you. Okay, while Lydia is working on that, I would love to know. So her appendix, she was having her appendix removed. So please, let's make sure that we just keep her in prayers, and hopefully I'll get some news and everything will be good. Noah, great question. So what you will do is from the point that you leave, you'll watch the recording and you'll take notes on the recording and respond to questions or provide feedback or whatever needs to happen there. And that's what you'll submit. Instead of just saying I was there, you can say I was there for the first part and here's my notes from the last part. Does that make sense? Just make sure that it's detailed notes so that I know that you watched the recording, not just I watched the recording. Perfect. Okay, good. Okay, so how was everyone's Thanksgiving? I hear that there was some busy but relaxing Thanksgivings. We had activities and things going on. You know, I didn't get more, and I have not had an opportunity to go look for some. If you want to send me some, I would love to play some. Very good. We got our tree and we went to a parade and we had some relaxing time. So it was really good. I'm ready for some more downtime around Christmas. Okay. Well, you'll send me an email with that and I'll see. We probably should stick with instrumental as long as there's no words, which there probably isn't if it's, yeah. Oh, wow. That sounds amazing. That sounds like a great time. So does anyone do any of the like Black Friday craziness? No, we don't either. I'm always curious. Oh, well, good. I'm glad that you got it. I'm glad you got it resolved. We actually had to stop at Kohl's on the way to the parade. Sure, online shopping isn't the same as going and battling some of the crowds, though. So I do too. I love Kohl's, and I was concerned because it was Black Friday. I thought, oh man, I am so afraid that if we had to go in there, and I thought, man, this is going to be so crowded, and there was nobody there. Of course, it was early. It was, 8:15 in the morning. And then I was sad that I didn't actually have time to do Black Friday shopping because there was nobody there. All right, so this week, hang on, I've got some stuff blocking my mouse. All right. Okay, so today we're going to talk about PowerPoint animations and transitions. We're going to talk a little bit about audio and video and kind of some publishing things to think about. And after today's class, you will have all of the information you need to be able to really dive in and do the work on your showcase that's due in a couple of weeks. And you actually, I need to check for sure, but I don't think, so you'll have an assignment this week to practice the things that we do today, and then you won't have anything due the next week to really allow you to work on refining and really getting creative with your fall showcase. So once you see some of the things that we can talk about today, it will be very exciting to see what people come up with when you see what's possible. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to talk about is actually kind of the easiest thing. Transitions and animations typically are talked about kind of the same way, kind of in the same conversation, because it has to do with movement. It has to do with the visual presentation where PowerPoint decks are concerned. So the transition is how the deck changes from slide to slide. So I'm actually going to come out of the presentation mode so we can come in here and look at some of the transitions that are available. So the transition has to do with how you go from one slide to the next, what that looks like. So if I wanted to apply, but you can see that there's a lot to apply, there's a lot of different kinds that you can do. And I will tell you that this is another one of those areas that people discover what you can do, and then they go crazy. And they use all the different transitions, and it's dizzying to try and watch a presentation where someone has used like a different type of transition for each slide, or just lots of very dynamic or exciting ones. So I am not sure how well you will be able to see this. Let me try a couple and see. I'm going to try a couple of basic ones, and then I'll try a couple of exciting ones. We'll see how that transition works. And I'm actually going to transition from this one to this one so that the transition is more noticeable. Oh, good. Okay, so if I apply a fade to this one, then you see it demonstrates that it fades from one to the next. If I want to change it and push, then you can see that it pushes, it looks like it's pushing one out of the way. Let me see if I can get, are you all able to see the actual transition? You should be able to, since you can watch the video, yeah. Okay, so here's checkerboard. There's a shred. So you can see that there are some pretty neat transitions, but you can also see that if you have a lot of these and there's constant movement, you can also set it up to just be random, to pick a different one every time, a conveyor. So it pulls some of the objects through. And so playing with these and picking the one that you like the best can be a lot of fun. So I'll tell you that this morph up here is not available in all versions. So again, you see that you can kind of hover over some of these, and it will give you a little bit more of an explanation. And morph has a really unique kind of feature. And if you duplicate, let's just try this one. So you can duplicate a slide, So first of all, I'm going to I need the pane. Okay, I'm going to duplicate the slide so that I have things that I can move around. And when it duplicates, it actually duplicates all parts of it. So I want my animation pane. So opening the animation pane lets me see what on this slide has been animated. And good grief, I've always added and changed. Oh, there we go. Let's do this. And I want to change it to none. Okay. So with the morph, you move things from one place to another. If you want to move something, so maybe I want this one. See, all of these are different text boxes. So I'm going to move these around. Move this one up here, and I'm not spending a whole lot of time. It keeps grabbing that from the back. I'm not spending a whole lot of time. Let's say I want this to go away. Oh, goodness. My mouse finger is not. And let's say I want this to move up here and this to move over here. Okay, so you move some things around and then you apply morph. And it automatically moves it. There was a different background behind the cork board. It's the standard background. So I just have this image on top. Yes, and then I can add things to it. I could add pictures, I could add, so that's just a kind of a background. So it will automatically take and do some morphing so that it morphs from one slide to the next, which is really a fun thing. And you can do some interesting things if you want it to go from one image to another, right? If you want it to morph from a dog to a cat, you can have a dog image on the first one and a cat image on the second one and morph it, and it will morph into something different. Yes. Okay, so that one is a lot of fun. That one is not available on all versions though. Make sure that so if you don't see that one, you don't have a version that supports it. It's sort of like the icons, that it's not available everywhere. So that one opens up. There's a drape. So, I mean, there's just so many. This one crumples up and goes to the next one. Okay, so lots of fun transitions here. So there are, with the transitions, we're right here on the transition tab. There are some things that you can do, that you can add to change it. Now, some of these, you'll notice, that one is a fracture. I'm trying to find one that actually has options. Okay, so here's a fade. And when there's one that has additional options, this pops up, and then you can decide, do you want it to go smoothly? Do you want it to go through black? So watch, if you pick some of them have some effect options. This one has a lot of them. So you can you can pick exactly how the transition works as well. Okay, so every time, so the thing that you have to remember is that this happens when this particular transition happens. So you want to be careful that, and I'm not sure if this will work or not. So when I do this slide transition, there will also be applause. Or when this slide transition goes, then there's like a camera click or a drum roll, or you can have an explosion go off. And used selectively, these can be really engaging and really effective. But again, you don't want to overdo with the sounds. So play with these. You can even add custom sounds to be able to, okay, I'm going to add applause here. And then let's, so it plays for however long the duration is. If you want it to go longer or shorter, then you can do that. If you want to apply it to all of them, then you can do that. So let's see, for a morph transition, let's have a whoosh sound. And let's test, so do you see how I'm testing it? This little star over here will play the animation so that I can see what it looks like. So that's a whoosh. Oh, I changed it from morph. Hang on. So that was really, really short. Too short, I think. I probably need it to be a little bit longer to. Okay, so the whoosh doesn't get longer. Maybe wind. Okay, that's a little better, but see, it's still going. So I need it to go as long as the animation is, or as long as the transition is happening. So you see, you can spend quite a bit of time. Oh, there's a breeze. That one's really short too. I don't know. Okay, then you can have it apply to all. I would usually, I can't really think of a situation that it could be that that's just the duration for the slide, but I can't really think of a situation where you would want to apply. I never use this sound transition. Yeah, but even then, every single one, I guess it would, I can't imagine why you would need the exact same sound for an entire presentation. I mean, I guess if you were animating a story and you really wanted to, I mean, I'm picturing you pretending, right? You have a magic wand or whatever, and you're pretending that your magic wand is what's changing so you want it to whoosh every time that slide changes, then I can see that. So, but it would need to be specific, right? You don't just want to apply that just because it's a cool thing to apply. You want to use it very selectively. You want to make sure that it is useful. So this is the slide advance, right? Right now, all of the slides are set to advance whenever you click on the mouse, then it will go to the next slide. But you can set it up to advance after a certain amount of time. So if you are in some kind of a situation where you want every slide, and I'm thinking about like, I mean, I always use this example. I don't even know if they still have these because I'm almost never at the mall, but they used to, they have kiosks kind of in the center of the mall, and sometimes they have little presentations set up, right, where it automatically advances through this set of slides. Yeah, a trade show, any kind of a conference or convention, where you just want it to rotate through these slides and you want it to go through this presentation on a loop over and over and over again until you change change it. And so that's a situation where you don't want to have to manually change the mouse click. You can set it up to automatically advance. So there are also, I just noticed on Morph, there are some effect options here where you can do characters, you can morph words, or you can morph the objects. Okay, so definitely some fun things that you can play around with the transition from slide to slide. Okay, so again, a reminder to kind of keep it simple and consider who you're presenting to, how is it going to be presented, and what is the need for it to move from one to the other. I mean, I think about being able to apply, you know, just at the very beginning, there's the curtain effect, right? This one. You can actually find backgrounds that look like a stage, and then you can kind of open that up to reveal the first part of your, whatever your presentation is. Okay, delete that slide. All right, questions about transitions. These are relatively straightforward. All right, so the next thing that we're going to talk about is actually not as straightforward, and it can get infinitely complex, but these are the things that are the most fun. So animations are the movement of objects within a slide. So animations, you can apply animations to text, to words, to objects, to images. You can have multiple animations applied to a single slide, and really the only limit is your own imagination. And I'm going to show you just a couple of videos. I'll have the links to all these videos. I'll add them into the class pages if you're interested in watching more. But I want to show you a couple of videos of just some examples of kind of what you can do, because most people realize, oh, okay, so, you know, I can take this word and I can make it fly into the page, or I can take this image and I can make it go off the page whenever I'm done looking at it. But there are so many more things that you can do. Let's first look at this one. Anyone know what Boolean is? It's not as relevant, but okay. I'm going to play this one, and let's take a look at the way that these shapes were created, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about some other animations.
Another new feature that you might not have noticed is the Boolean shape tools, which are amazing, but they're hidden away and they take a bit of digging around to find, but it's well worth it, because with these tools you can create any shape you can imagine very quickly. I made that hand with the pen using these tools, and I also made that nice shiny key. They're all made of PowerPoint shapes, and that only took a couple of minutes to make. And because they're PowerPoint shapes, they're completely editable. Now, the most difficult thing about the Boolean tools is actually finding them. They're hidden in that All Commands list that you might have looked through earlier when setting up your toolbar. So, right-click on your toolbar, select Customize Quick Access Toolbar, and then look through the All Commands list until you find right down at the bottom Shape Combine, Shape Intersect, Shape Subtract, and Shape Union. Add those to your toolbar. Now, I've only got time to show you two of them, and then you can experiment with the others. So let's make that lovely shiny key. Now basically you're just going to use other shapes to put the new shape together. So I need a donut shape for the ring of the key, there it is, and then a long rounded rectangle, and then maybe some smaller rectangles for the teeth on the key here. Now you need to make sure when you're doing this that all the shapes overlap with no gaps in the middle except for the big gap in the middle of the keyring. You're basically just building the outline of the shape with other shapes. There we go. Now once we're done, we highlight all of the pieces like this and click on Shape Union. Now that has just combined all of the shapes together into a single shape, and because it's a single shape you can add nice color effects, you can add 3D effects if you want to, or a shadow, or you could even rotate it in 3D and give it some perspective. So now with this tool you can build anything you can imagine. Now that's the Shape Union tool. The only other one I want to show you right now is the Shape Subtract. So I've got my key, maybe I want to make something for it to fit into. So maybe I'm talking about having the right solution to unlock business value or something like that. So here's a box. If I put my key about here on top of it, I'm going to cut a key-shaped hole out of the box. But, and this is very important, I need to make a copy of the key first because I'm going to lose it. I always lose my keys in real life as well. But seriously, Control C or right click and copy to copy the key, and then I need to hold down Control and click the box that I want to cut, and then click the key that I want to use to do the cutting and hit Shape Subtract. So there you go, it's used the shape of the key where it overlapped the box to carve out a perfectly key-shaped hole in the box. But I told you I'd lost the key. It's okay, paste the copy, and there we go. I could now animate this key to move into the hole in the box or whatever I want to do. So Shape Union and Shape Subtract, two extremely useful tools, great for making things that fit together like jigsaw pieces or layered diagrams, for example. Well, we hope you found that interesting. For more information.
Okay, so there's one, and it shows how you have to really, I mean, people could have looked for a picture of the key, right? But he just made the sort of key that he wanted just by overlapping those shapes and combining them, which I think is just really a neat idea. Okay, so I have one other example video, and then I have one last one. The last one's only 30 seconds, but this one is another example of kind of how you can use really precise movements with the animations, and then we'll kind of talk a little bit more about how they're done.
Okay, now let's get a bit further in with the motion paths and look at how to set them up really precisely. Now you might want to show, for example, a shot of your website like this, nice and big so that everyone can see it clearly, but then you want to go on to talk about your marketing efforts with the site and how it's increasing your market exposure or something like that. So we've got the web page staying on the screen but being part of a story about increasing awareness or whatever it is. So I got the image of the website to shrink and move across to fit into that screen perfectly, so I can arrange some more visuals around it. Now you can do this by trial and error, but it's going to take a long time. So let's see how to make it very quick and make it precise. Okay, now the first thing you need to get used to using, if you haven't already used them, is the drawing guides. Now if you can't see these crosshairs on your screen, just right click anywhere on the blank part of the background and select Grid and Guides. Now forget about the grid. What you want is this, Display Drawing Guides on Screen. Very useful and essential for this kind of work. Now guides are kind of like magnetic lines. Anything you position near them will try and stick its edge to the guideline. Now you reposition them by grabbing them very, very carefully, because they're very tiny, and dragging them left or right or up and down like this. You can make as many as you want with that control drag trick that I taught you earlier. If you hold down Control and drag one of them, you'll make a new one. Okay? Right. Now here's how we use them with motion paths. Now what I have to do first is understand exactly where I want the shape to end up when it's stopped moving. So what I do is make a copy of the shape that I'm moving and position it where I want it to finish up. So just here, for example. Now you've noticed that when you highlight a shape, you get these handles around the edge that you normally use to stretch it, right? Now what we're going to do is use these to position our guides. So I'm going to blow up the screen a bit, and then I'm going to move my horizontal and vertical guides so that they cut my shape in half. See, exactly along those handles. And what I've got now is a crosshair that gives me the exact center point of the shape, and that's where my motion path is going to end up. So I apply a motion path to this square, so it's going right, sort of, and see, the green handle, which is the starting point, is directly in the center of the shape. That's where it starts. So the red handle, the end point, has got to be where the center point of the shape needs to be when it stops moving. And that's what I've just targeted with my guides, with that crosshair. So I can delete the copy now. The guides are still there, of course, and I just drag my red handle over to that cross, and it will magnetize itself to that exact point. So when I run that motion path, it's moved to exactly the right position. Now, if I want to combine that with a grow-shrink effect, I can do that, but I need to work with some percentages, because the grow-shrink effect works by making the shape less than 100%, which is smaller, or greater than 100%, which is bigger and relative to the original size of the shape. So I can make things easy on myself here. Here's the original shape, like that web page shot maybe, and then I make a copy of it, put it where I want it to go, and then go to right click, format shape, and go to size and position. So I'll make this copy smaller, let's say 60% of the original size, and then I position it where I want the shape to end up, maybe just here, and do the same trick with the crosshairs. So get them centered on the middle of the shape, just like that. There we go. And now I can put in a TV or build a frame there or whatever I want and position it around that copy, getting it exactly the right size. Then I can get rid of the copy, and now I can add my grow shrink effects to the moving shape, and I'm going to set that up so that it changes to 60% of its original size, remember, because that's what the copy was. Now sometimes I don't remember and I have to do it again, but this is a fairly simple one. Okay, so 60%, I've set up the grow shrink, and I just set that to happen at the same time as the motion path and for the same duration, the same length of time, and there we are, we're done. So it moves to exactly the right position and it shrinks exactly the right amount to fit in that space. Well, we hope you found that.
Okay, so that one is showing you the process that you have to go through. It was more confusing because there were multiple steps, and you can rewatch the videos. You can try and recreate it on your own. That's really the best way to kind of apply some of these things. But it helps you to begin to think about what you have to do whenever you are wanting to apply some of the more advanced features. So this one, I'm going to make it go full screen. This one's only 30 seconds. But the most important thing that you need to remember for this is that this entire sequence was created in only using PowerPoint. So I just keep that in mind. I'm going to try and make it go full screen so that you can see it a little bit better than the little one. Okay, let me see. Okay, now I just have to find the chat again. There we go. Right? Okay, so you can imagine that that took hours and hours and hours and hours of very meticulous work to be able to get all of that in there. But it shows you the extent to which you can do things in PowerPoint. I have friends who have done 3D animations with morphing like Star Wars characters from one character to the other, and they use them, you know, once they've built all the characters, then they morph it. There's just so much that you can do that you really are only limited by the amount of time and effort and creativity that you want to invest. So there's some other videos that I will make sure that I put all of these in the class pages so that you can watch some of the others. But before we kind of started exploring some of the and practicing with some of the things for animations, I wanted you to kind of get an idea of what's actually possible. So I'm going to create a blank slide. So that we can do a couple of things with. Okay, so right-clicking, here's the grids and guidelines that he was talking about. You can add vertical, you can add horizontal, you can add the grid lines or the guides. I'm going to insert some icons so that we have a couple of different things that we can work with. Okay, so let's do, we'll do a runner. We can do just variety. Maybe some headphones, a communication, and some thinking. Okay, so we have a variety of it's keeping them all together. I don't want those grouped. Ungrouped. Okay, well, that is not pulling apart. Okay, so let's try this again. Let's just do a couple of simple images. All right, we've got arrow. We'll do a smiley face. Anytime you're inserting, okay. So we have a few different objects. Now let's go to our animations tab and let's take a look at some of the things that we can do with the animations. I've got my animation pane open. This isn't open by default, but you can open or close it from the animation tab. So the first thing that I want to do, let's just add an animation, right? And there are lots of them available. You have an entrance animation, so that's going to be how does the object move onto this screen. You have an emphasis, so it's already on the screen, but we want to draw attention to it somehow. So we can change the color, we can make it kind of pulse, and you can click on these to kind of test and see what it's going to look like. And then there's the exit. So we can make it bounce off the screen. We can make it just disappear. We can make it shrink and turn. So all of these, when you hover over them, have some explanation about how it works. Then you can always test it. Okay, here's the other thing to note. You see there's a little 1 here. That lets you know that this is an animation, and it lets you know that this is the first thing that's going to happen on the slide. So if you add another animation, so we're going to add something to this one. Let's have this one fly in. Now we have 2, so this is going to happen first. This is going to happen second. Let's just apply a float in on that one. Okay, so that now there's a third one. If I want to be able to modify these, so this gives you, there's several different things to keep track of where the animations are concerned. Each animation has options. So it's saying that right now it's set up so that each animation happens on click. So for me to activate on this slide, each one of these things, they're not going to happen automatically. I'm going to have to click, and the arrow will change color. Then I have to click, and the triangles will come onto the screen. Then I have to click again, and the smiley face will float in. So if I don't want all of those things to happen, if I don't want to manually have to do all of those things, then I can change it so that it starts either with the previous one or after the previous one. So if I want them to happen one at a time, then I can say I want each of these to happen after the previous one. If I want them all to happen at the same time, then I can have them all changed to apply with the previous one. Now remember okay, let me show you. This one is the smiley face. That's the one that we're looking at. If I change this to happen after the previous one, then I go look at this particular animation. You see that it's still set to on click. So as with Word and with the different things that we've learned, if you already have things on your slide, then it's only going to apply the changes you make to whatever you have selected or highlighted. So if you want this to apply to other things, then you have to either set it to be a default, or you have to highlight all of them. So if I highlight all 3 of them, then I can change it to where they all happen after the previous one, right? So now there's no more numbers. Now they just happen all together. Okay, so if I decide, no, I really did like it better, I want them to all happen at the same time, then it all happens at the same time. So if I want to go back to on click, then I get my numbers back. So there's that. Okay, the other thing that you can do is you can rearrange them. So if I want the flow chart to be the first thing, now this is number 1, and this is number 2, and this is number 3. So you can drag and drop those. All right. So the other thing that you can change is, so this is how they're set off, the timing, when should it happen. You can also change how long it takes. So with this particular one right now, it's going to take a half a second for it to come in. If I want it to go really slow, then I'm going to tell it to take longer. And this is when it starts and when it ends. So it starts at 0 seconds when the slide comes in. It lasts for 3 seconds. I can adjust this. I can make changes here to the timing, to when it starts, and then there's some options if I wanted some advanced options. So you can see that there's a lot of very intricate changes you can make to these if you want to make those changes. Okay, so the same thing. So there, you can also set up a trigger so that if I click on something specific, that causes something to happen, right? So this can be fun if you are asking people to interact with the presentation. Click on this, and then this thing over here happens. You click on this and it pops up more information about it. Or you click on this and you you see it rotate, right? So this can help you have a more engaging if it's something that your audience is actually going to interact with. The other thing that you can do is have it be something that is, well, okay, so if I click on the smiley face, there's my trigger. Then that's whenever all of the stuff happens. So then the rest of these things will happen when I click on this. So that's, otherwise it just kind of hangs out there waiting for me to tell it now's the time. Okay, so there can also be, so you can tell it how long you want it to take. You can also tell it to wait. So yes, I want you to do this, but I want you to wait 5 seconds after the slide changes before anything happens. So if you want to give people a second to look at what's on the screen and then slowly make things go away, then that's where the delay would come in. Okay. I am going to remove that. Okay, other advanced options. Okay, so we're gonna pause for 5 minutes. We're at halfway through, and then when we come back, we're going to talk some more about, we're going to do some more with animations, and we'll talk about publishing and a little bit about audio and video. So we will come back in 5 minutes. So it will be 9:53-ish, 52, 53-ish. Okay. And break. We'll see you guys in just a few minutes. Okay, see, I was playing, I lost track of time. Now we're at 9:54. Okay, so I want to show you just a couple of examples of some ways that you can specifically use animations at a really basic kind of level. So keeping in mind that, let me do one other. So we have a title up here. We have a couple of images. I'm also going to insert some words here. All right, so we have some bullet points, right? We have bullet point 1. All right, so this is all the information that I want to have. We've got some bullet points. I'm going to add the bullet points here, and I'm going to make this larger because that is way too small. All right, so I've got my title, and I've got some good information here, and then I've got a couple of images that I want to emphasize. And let me just insert one more icon, because maybe each of these images corresponds to a bullet point. Maybe I want to have a picture about each one. And you see how these guidelines are appearing to kind of help me make sure that things are showing me what it's lined up to. Okay, so we have 3 images, we've got 3 bullet points. We're gonna say this is that each of these images is additional information about it. Okay, so the first thing that I want to do is I want to, this I just want to be on the slide. I don't necessarily want, actually, since we're doing animations, I will just say that this one needs to appear. And that's the first thing that I want to happen. I want my title to appear so that people know what this is about. So, and I don't want this to happen on click. Actually, the first one can happen on click. Okay, so I'm going to leave this to happen on click and it will appear. Then I'm going to highlight this, and I want this to float in. You see how it demonstrated what that was, right? And I want that to happen on click, because I'm going to click, and then because I'm talking, I'm presenting. So when I click, then that appears. Now it's going to get a little bit trickier because I want 2 things to happen at the same time now. So I want my bullet point to I'll go ahead and stick with float in, because that's kind of, and then at the same time, I want this one to fly in, but this one I want to come from the top left, right? Because the images I want to come in from a different point than I want the bullet points to come in. Now, here's where my number 4, I actually want to happen with the previous one, right? Because I want those to happen at the same time. So if I say start with previous, now it's a number 3 and this is a number 3. So now let's look and see how it's going so far. Okay, so I want it to play from the beginning. So that's what we have so far. We have this one appear, we have this fly in, Then we have these two come at the same time. Then we have our next bullet point. We're going to do something different here. Probably, again, not the best idea to have a bunch of different options, but I want to make sure that you know. So I'm going to have this one come in this way, and the same thing here, because we at least want them. And then this one needs to start with the previous one. So we're connecting them together. And so the third one, we'll do that one as a bounce. All right, so this one, we want to bounce in. And so we'll do the same thing. I actually am going to flip this. And I'm going to rotate it. Oh, let's flip it back the other way. All right, so that it looks like it's happening with the same one. So we want this to bounce as well. We want it to bounce in. But we want it to happen with the previous one. So now their 3s are grouped together, the 4s are grouped together, and the 5s are grouped together. So now let's take a look at what that looks like. I'm going to close my animation pane. And I'm going to go to my slideshow, and I'm going to present from the current slide. So the first thing that happens, it's waiting, because I told it I wanted that first thing to happen on click. So nothing's going to happen until I click. Now I click, and there's my title. Now I click again, and there's the first part. Now, what should happen whenever I click again? What should I expect to happen here? They can click, whoever is running the PowerPoint. All right, so there's bullet point 1 and the image that goes with it. Now here's bullet point 2. I'm clicking again, and those two come in at the same time. That looked pretty good. I liked that one. And then here's the third one. And those come in together. That looked pretty good too. So you see that we took those animations and we connected the things that we wanted to. All the information is there, but this avoids visual clutter. So if you're thinking about, and then this goes to the next slide. So I'm actually going to back up again. And I have to go back up through the clicks. Okay, so if all that information was on the slide just automatically, then people have access to all the information. But if I'm talking and I'm presenting and maybe I want to ask a question, but I don't want to display the answer yet, right? I want to wait and give people a minute to think about it. Maybe I want to ask a question and I want to say, okay, we're talking about computer literacy today. We're going to be talking about the 3 most important things, 3 most important reasons that computer literacy is important to be taught in schools. What do you think those 3 reasons are, right? And you talk to your audience and you maybe get some feedback, or you have people write it down or think about it. And then you say, okay, so here's reason number 1. And you talk a little bit about that. Did any of you select reason number 1? And it makes for more engaging. It keeps the content more simple, and it helps your audience focus on only what you are wanting them to focus on. Now, the other thing that I could do is, when at the same time that I'm bringing in bullet point 2 information, if I really wanted them to focus, then I could remove bullet point 1 and the image that goes along with that, so that I'm really only emphasizing one, and then at the end bring all 3 of them back in, right? So there are lots of ways that you can do that. And then I click again, and here's my second point and the information that goes along with that. And then here's my third point. Okay, so did that help a little bit in terms of how you can use animations and transitions specifically when you're creating something that you're going to be using to communicate with people? You want it to be used very effectively to help them focus, to help emphasize something. Okay, so now let's look at this next one for a minute. Yes. Okay, so maybe there's one thing on here that I just really want to make sure people pay attention to. So I'm going to apply a color pulse to that. And, you know, there are some trigger things that I could do. Let's look at the animation pane here. Maybe I want this to last longer. I can change how long I want that to happen. I'm going to say 3 seconds. I do want it to start only after I click. There are some timing things that I could change. What is the color that I want it to like flash? Maybe green. I want there to be maybe a drum roll. And then after the animation, don't put it back to normal. Animate the text. Instead of having it go all at once, I think I'm going to have it go one letter at a time. And let's see how that looks. Okay, so there's my effects, there's my timing, and I'm going to say okay. That was my drum roll along with it, right? So I want to make sure, so which is a little bit ironic because I made keep it simple the most complicated bullet point on the screen. Okay, so there are a few things to keep in mind whenever you're doing that, and then you can always just remove it if you don't want that to happen. So there are a lot of changes that you can make to really emphasize certain points. You can do the same thing with an image. I haven't done a lot with, let me see if I can grab. Okay, let's do a cup of coffee. All right. So we have an image that we have added. I am not sure what animation is actually applied to this. Oh, the color pulse still? Interesting. Okay. Okay. That is, what does that do? Color pulse. I don't. Yeah, I don't think you can really do a color pulse on an image. That seems weird. Okay, so motion paths are one of the things that people use a lot to move an image from one place to another. So there are also, I'll show you a motion path in just a second. It is the path that whatever you've selected is going to move on. So if you think about motion, it has to do with movement, and then a path is the direction it's going to go. So a shape is the simplest. So it literally moves it along a path, and it's showing you here that this is the path that this image is going to move on. If I want that to be a bigger path, then I can have it be a bigger path. So if I want that to be a different path, I can select it. Maybe it can be an arc, or it can be, let's do a loop. So it will move in that particular path. I can also design a custom path. And there's my custom path. So I told it I want it to go up and over and down, and that custom path can be anything that you want it to be, and that's the direction it will go. If I decide that is not the custom path that I want, maybe I just want it to be bigger because I want it to go all over. Yes, so like you can do a big circle around the whole screen. Now it's going to move up and down and over. Okay, so that's really fast. And there are some to loop it. Okay, so you can edit points, you can open the path, you can reverse the path direction. Let's look at the effect options and the timing. Okay, so the effect options and the timing is where you're going to look for anything like that. So the path is unlocked. You want a smooth start and a smooth end, but goodness, 1 second is way too short for that. So I'm going to say, let's do 4 seconds and 2 seconds, and you can even bounce it at the end. You can auto reverse it. We don't want any sounds. We don't want any animations there. So you can start it on click, you can delay it, you can have the duration. I want it to be very slow. And then here we have repeat. So you can either have it do 2 times, 3 times, 4 times. You can have it keep going until you click again, or you can just have it keep going until you move to the next slide. So you can have it go on a continuous cycle. And then if your motion path has it go from one side of the screen to the other and end there, then you can have it rewind when it's done playing, and it will pop back to the beginning. So you can keep that in mind. All of the ones that I've done so far, it ends up in the same place it started. Okay, so there's my custom path. Now it's much slower, and it ends up back over there at the beginning. So custom paths are a lot of fun. Okay, and I'm on my audio video because I wanted to talk a little bit more about audio and video. But animations and transitions, animations in particular, there's so much you can do with those. So you can animate any object that is on your screen, that is on that slide. Words, pictures, shapes, anything that you can put on the slide, you can animate. Okay, so let's think about, okay. That's a different one. Okay, so you can do recordings to go with, you can embed audio, you can embed video, or you can record narration so that your voice that plays automatically. So again, this is the sort of thing that if it's something that you want to send it to someone to watch, and you want to make sure that you have all of the words already there so that when they play it, they hear everything, then you can record those narrations and it will, there will end up being a little icon right down here that shows that that is there. So you can record just from the current slide, and it will record what you say. It will record if you mark something on the slide. It records all of the animations, the transitions, all of those things. And then you can customize how you want it to play back. Okay, so if I just want to practice, maybe I have my script, I want to practice going through it, I can rehearse before I actually record. So that's if I want to record it myself, but I can also insert, hang on, let me find, okay, I just want to find a quick, okay. This will be a good one. I'm going to delete this, to insert media. I want to insert an online video here. And let me get the embed code. Well, that's okay. I'm going to select this and insert it. Okay. So now if I play my slideshow from the current slide, I have this video here, and I can click on this video. Oh, it's not available, I bet because it's streaming. Hold on. No, it shouldn't be. I bet it's too long. Okay, I'm just going to find one song. Let's do that instead. Okay, so I'm going to have to edit out of this, so you can't do long videos. Yes, Christmas song. I'm ready for Christmas music. Oh, that is. All right, I've got to swap this out. All right, let's insert the media again. I know. This is just, we're only gonna play it for a few seconds, just so you get an idea. All right. Now, my slideshow from the current slide. This time, I don't know why it's not playing. I'm gonna have to play with that. It might just be because I'm streaming. It can tell that I'm streaming in a live classroom. But you can insert it, you can click to play it, and now let's go back to Okay, so a couple of things to remember when you're doing audio and video. Oh man, we're already almost out of time. Is that versions matter. So older versions of PowerPoint, you had to actually send the video file along with the PowerPoint presentation because it would point back to wherever the file lived, like on your own computer, if it was a file like that. So newer versions, that's no longer an issue. It packages up the file along with the presentation and it will send the whole thing. Again, be very aware of how it's going to be used and where it's going to be watched, right? Like if you don't want to put a bunch of video in a presentation that somebody needs to watch in a very loud environment or somewhere where they're maybe not going to have headphones, or so you want to be really careful that you are intentional with any audio or video use. So keep it simple and keep it very specific and think about what is the best way to communicate this information. You don't want to use a video or audio just because you can. And then the storage and file size matters. So if it's a really big file, then if it's a really big audio or video file, then you have to think about how am I going to get this to the people that need to watch it. If it's really big, it's not going to be able to be sent by email. So that's the other thing that you have to be really careful about whenever you're using any kind of audio or video files. Okay, so tables, graphs, and charts. I think we're going to talk a little bit more about these next week. Whenever we're talking about alternates, we can talk a little bit about those in PowerPoint. That's not necessarily the way that you all will be using it yet, but I want to make sure that you are aware of those features and where they are and how they work. Okay, so when you think about publishing, right, this has to do with the final thing whenever you are getting what you've created to the people that need to be seeing it. There are so many different ways that you can distribute a PowerPoint deck. And so you need to, just because you create something in a PowerPoint deck doesn't mean that that's how it has to be published. Remember that you can save it as images, you can save it as a video file that literally just auto plays, you can save it as a PDF, you can play it automatically, there are so many different ways. So remember the variety of ways that you can present as you are putting together the information that you are presenting. Okay. I want to first talk about this week's assignment, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about the fall showcase now that you have kind of all of the skills that you need to be able to do that. So this week's assignment, you're doing a 5-slide PowerPoint deck. It can be something that you make up. Maybe you want to do how I spent my holiday presentation, or here's why we should go to the Grand Canyon for vacation next year presentation, or maybe you actually have a presentation for school that you want to actually create and use. Whatever you want to do is fine. But 5 slides, the subject should be consistent, and the final product should be presentable or publishable, right? It should be ready to go, so there shouldn't be any Lorem Ipsum text. There shouldn't be any, yes, it can be more than 5 slides, but a 5-slide minimum. Especially if you have something in mind that you want to do for something else. It can be about a book or a movie. Yep, absolutely. Maybe you want to do a presentation about that. Yeah. Yes, definitely. Any kind of theme. So pick a theme or a design. You can select text. Think about the font that you choose, the formatting. I had so much fun looking at your original PowerPoint presentations from week 11. We've got some really creative students in here, and I loved seeing some of the themes and the font choices that you made. Very visually enjoyable to look at. Have some word art or some smart art in there. Images. You've got plenty of slides. 5 slides is plenty to be able to do all of this. Need to have some transitions. What is which one? Word art. Okay. Word art is actually what I did for the title here when you are inserting. So the word art is up here, and it just gives you can use titles, and then smart art is over here. That's if you want to use the graphics. Yes. It's all of these are features in PowerPoint. Yes. Excellent questions. All right, so edited images, transitions, and animations. I should see them both. And then I would love, so those are going to be due next week. Then fall, really, you should really be thinking about your fall showcase now. And I'm going to go back to slideshow view because the words on this are smaller. Okay, so this is a computer literacy advertisement. So you're going to you have one file in Word, one file in PowerPoint, different content on each page. So you're going to be handing in 2 separate files. One of those files is going to be a Word doc, a docx file. That can be a flyer, it can be a brochure, it can be a worksheet if you want to create some kind of a worksheet related to advertising this class. So the very first thing that you're going to have to think about is, who am I advertising to? Who's my audience? Am I convincing my friends they should take this class? Am I convincing a group of kids that that computer literacy is important? Am I convincing a group of senior citizens that this is something that they can actually do, and it can be fun and it can be exciting? So you have to kind of get in your head, and it can be pretend or it can be real. If I was going to do this, what all would I need to do to convince them? And so having that audience in mind then helps you decide, okay, if I'm convincing a group of kids, then what my flyer looks like is going to be very different than if I'm convincing a group of adults, right? So the images you use, the font you use, the size of the font, all of those things are going to be different depending on who your audience is. So you'll have a Word doc, and you need to include many of the elements that we discussed, that we practiced on that flyer. And it should be visually appealing, right? You should have put some thought into the colors, into the images. People should want to look at it. Sorry, hold on. Okay, then you're going to have a PowerPoint that will also complement whatever your Word document is. It can be additional information. It can supplement it can be a supplement. It can be a complement. So maybe the presentation runs on its own while you're talking to people about the Word document, or maybe people fill out the Word document while you're giving your presentation. So you just have to think about how they can work together to communicate what you tried to do. You can email me and see. Some of those templates certain parts of it are locked down. So I am happy if you want to email it and email it to me. Tell me what you're trying to do, and we'll see if we can figure it out, Kelly. Okay, so you can go back and look at the other weeks, look at those summaries to remind yourself of what all we covered, because we have talked about a lot of things this semester, a lot more than just Word and PowerPoint. So remembering all of the things that we talked about for hardware and viruses and just all of the different things that we've covered, you can include information about all of those in either the Word and or the PowerPoint. Yep, you can do that, more like a visual syllabus. That would be good. Yes, you could do that too. Just remember that the class is not just about Word and PowerPoint. This also pulls in the other things that we've talked about. So don't limit yourself to talking about Word and PowerPoint. Remind yourself about the other things that we've covered as well. And so you will hand those in, and then I'm going to pull them up and we'll show everybody what has been handed in during the last class. So we have 2 more classes. That's right. So next week we're talking about presentation, best practices, and alternatives to PowerPoint. And then the final class is going to be the showcase. So you need to have a working microphone. I would love it if you came on webcam, but you don't have to be on webcam, but you do have to have a working microphone to be able to answer questions, to be able to tell me and the class about what you have handed in for the Word document and the PowerPoint. Okay, so I do need you to make sure that you understand that it's due December 8th, not December 9th, which is Sunday. So it is due one day early because you've had like a month to work on this, and I need a day to be able to prepare. I need to be able to prepare on Sunday to make sure I have everybody's work and that it's all ready to go for Monday morning. And if I don't get it until Sunday night, then I don't have time to do that. Right. So any questions about where we're at with the fall showcase? All right, you guys getting some ideas? Wait, go for it. Go ahead, Kelly. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful week. It can be called whatever you want your advertisement to be called. It depends on who your audience is. Computer literacy for everyone, or how computer lit changed my life, right? I mean, whatever you want, whatever you think would get people's attention, you can title it. Well, on the title slide, you're presenting it, right? Your name should be on there because you are the presenter. Yes. Perfect. Okay, guys. Bye.